Hello, Michelle. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to talk to you, Katie.
This amazing woman wrote a book called Hey, Beginner Wife. And when I heard about you on the interwebs, I was like, wow, what a resource. What a kind. I, I just love your heart. I always say that everything I do on the internet is to be who I needed when I was younger. And it sounds like you have done exactly just that with this book, helping young brides. And as we were just talking about before we hit record, what a under resourced market. Beginner wives, young brides. We talk about even for singles, there's a lot of information. And I don't know, it just seems like it's like make the right choice when it comes to dating, make the right choice. Okay, good job, good luck out there. and
Yes,
and there's still a lot to
unfortunately.
navigate. Yes. Okay, so tell me, welcome to the podcast, tell me a little bit
Thank you.
about your lovely self.
Oh, well, thanks. So I have been married 38 years to my husband, Steve. We married almost right out of college, 2 years out of college. So we were young, and we both shared a vision to have a large family. So we started in on our family right away, and we have six grown children now, and three
Amazing.
boys, three girls, and that's a huge part of our story. But even though I went to college and got a degree, I always knew that I wanted to be a wife and a mother. And if I could, I wanted to stay home with my children. And that is what ended up happening. I did some work from home stuff, but once I had six children, that wasn't even a possibility to do anything like
It's a
that.
full-time job. Yeah.
So, but from the beginning, I mean, even way back in junior high, I remember just dreaming of having children and being a mom. So that love for marriage had me listening to stuff my mom was listening to. If it was on the radio, I would kind of hang out and listen to it. I read books about marriage before I got married. I kind of studied married couples. Just, it just was a natural thing for me to go, oh, she shouldn't have said that. Little things like that. So I still have a real love of marriage and relationship, and my heart is for young women who might think that marriage isn't for them because they've never seen a happy marriage modeled and they don't think they can actually pull it off. And then it's also for the young woman who's married who thinks, "Oh gosh, I didn't think it would feel like this. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, or maybe I married the wrong man." So I wanted to be out there and say, "Oh gosh, no, everybody feels like that at some point. Let me just talk to you about what a healthy marriage looks like." So I actually jumped on Instagram about 5 years ago and started posting posts just with that message in mind and those women in mind. And then over the years thought, I think I'd like to write a book, but that's a huge undertaking. And I actually got it done. It took me 2 years. So I'm really thrilled that it's done. And it's available now. And I'm trying to get it into the hands of young women who would really find it encouraging.
I love that. So you started talking about just kind of your passion and what this looks like and mentoring young women, and obviously things kind of took off. Tell me some of the things that you, I know this is a loaded question, but hot topics that you find are often talked about online or just when it comes to your message. Maybe just to dive into one of them to start.
Oh, gosh.
I know.
Um, well, I think a, a, a hot topic when I get a lot of pushback talking about how we default to complaining. And in the home, like I identify that as just a natural tendency for women. We talk about we want to change our husband. Um, we want to make him a better man, and we're just so if we don't have children, that's kind of our thought is, well, let me help you grow, let me help you change. I know how to do marriage better. And once we have children, we're so used to correcting our little kids that we start correcting our husband in the same breath, and that whole area of our life just um, erodes our marriage. And so I do talk about that a lot. And I get women that kind of push back, like, wait, what do you mean I'm complaining a lot? And we don't see it in ourselves. So I just
Yeah.
encourage them, well, start observing other people, and then you're probably going to begin seeing it in your own relationship. And a part of that as well is what does it look like to respect your husband? And that word seems to be a hot topic because women are pushing against it. They don't like to be told that their husband should be respected, because in the next breath they say, well, I should be respected too. And I agree with that. But what I have found is that we cannot see how we're not respecting them. We think that we are, and yet if you talk to the men, they'll say they don't feel appreciated. So I started changing my message to, instead of saying respect your husband, I've said appreciate your man. Just say thank you for the things he's doing. Appreciate the fact that he has skills that, appreciate his skills. Like, they may not even be the ones that you think are amazing, but they are his skills. And if you appreciate him for them, he's just going to feel great and start doing more of the things you want him to do. So the whole complaining, criticizing thing, wrapped up with what is what is respect, and how come it got such a bad rap when all we really need to do is
Yeah.
appreciate them. And it can be as simple too as appreciating the fact that they're a grown man. Because I think sometimes, like one time my husband said in exasperation, he goes, "Can't you just trust me to get it done?" And when he said that, I thought, oh my gosh, he's right. I don't trust him to get him done. I think he needs my help. Well, why? He's a grown man, for Pete's sake, you know? I mean, he's a father of how many children at that point? Um, so it just arrested my attention to what my natural tendencies were. So those are a few of the things that I bring up online, and then I also talk about in my book.
This is so good. And I think that you really hit the nail on the head talking about it's so much harder to see in ourselves than it is in other people. And I notice this so much too. Just I'm also interested in relationships and healthy marriages and dating and how all of that works. And notice so often, just when friendships that we have or whatever, women can be, uh, I don't know the words, snarky, mean, cutting down, corrective.
Yeah,
And of course, I never, ever have been that way, ever. Because it's
ever.
so much easier to see in other, yeah. And I'm sure that I have, unfortunately, but it's so much easier to see in other people than it is in ourselves. I am going to go on a rabbit trail, and I would love for you to come with me. Again, just as someone on a similar journey as you, observing relationships, I have a theory, could be wrong. Kind of going back to the Garden of Eden in the very beginning, the curse of Eve, and how, she has the quote knowledge of good and evil. And since then, the desire, I think it is that it presented to rule over your husband.
Mm,
Like, yeah, isn't that interesting? And I feel like from what I see, what I observe, and I'm sure probably in my own heart too, just that control and like, why can't you do this better? And like, just the women being a lot of times just very, snarky and chop, chop, chop and get in line and do this faster. And you haven't taken the trash out. And I asked you 30 seconds ago, what is wrong with you? You piece of crap. And I
yeah.
see that a lot. And I'm curious your thoughts on like going back to the curse of Eve.
You know, I had not been, I see it too. I had not been presented that scripture as an explanation as to why it seems to be pervasive among women. And yet, if you actually take the Bible's teaching as being applicable to how we live our lives today, and clearly you're putting a lot of weight on that as an explanation, um, I believe you. I agree with you. I know some of my followers aren't there yet. You know, they really don't have an understanding of what the Bible says, but I really do think that is part of how we are hardwired. We want to rule over our husbands and control them. And it's also, let's say that you know that, and you know it's wrong. It still doesn't mean that you're not going to do it, unfortunately.
Right.
Like, we just naturally default to that. And I think when we understand that, it destroys our house, so to speak, it destroys our marriage, and then we want to change, then we can realize the struggle that it is to change. Like, one of
Yeah.
the things I've heard said about relationships is you cannot change your husband, but you can change yourself. So work on yourself. And as a young wife, I'll be honest, I didn't think I needed much working on. I thought I was doing great. I thought I had to teach him And that was very humbling to actually
Yeah.
stop and think, okay, wait, what? Is it possible that I have something to work on? And yes, I did. And there were some books that helped me to just see that, but I do think it shows us our need to cry out to God for change for us first.
Yeah.
And then when we can
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that we are, or recognize the fact that we do want to control our husbands, I think we can humbly step back and think, okay, this is my default, but I also see it's not healthy for my marriage. And I see that when I do that, my husband's face drops and maybe he stops volunteering to do things because all I do is criticize him. So why does he want to get himself in a lose-lose situation? So he gives up. I mean, some men that are sitting on the couch completely frustrating their wives are doing it because there's nothing they can do to win. They're like, no matter what I do, I'm doing it wrong. So heck, I'm just going to play a video game. It's
Yeah.
sad, but I think if you've got an older woman who can help you see that, and if you're open to learning, then that's how you get through some of those sticky parts of the early years of marriage, is just by someone coming along and saying, well, let's just talk about your role in the relationship, which I know women don't want to hear right off the bat. So let's tread lightly. That's how I feel in my book. I'm just going to be
Yes.
gentle about suggesting these ideas because I understand they're hard to hear sometimes.
Yes. I'm laughing, but also crying because this is also true. And I'm thinking of we just, my daughter's volleyball game. There was a woman, another couple, and she was like standing up, like finger in the face to her husband, like he was a toddler, like, can't, no, 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 no.
Oh,
I mean, this
oh,
is a public event. And I saw this multiple times, and it's just something that you see more often than I would like to. And so I'm so thankful for your resources. But kind of, I don't know if it's the other side of this, but something I also want to cover is uh, what I'm sure you get pushed back on social media: women's empowerment. And yes, we should be respected too. And yes, we shouldn't be doormats. But this is sticky. This is, yeah. So, I don't know if maybe you could just shed some light on, yes, we're not saying women, you should be a doormat. Do not put up with abuse and stuff, but there is grace, there is patience. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Can you shed some light to this conversation?
um, well, I think that you're kind of talking about, when you talk about empowerment, of what it looks like to be an empowered woman. Um, I think the way that the traditional home is set up, women come in and we are there to help our husbands and to get up underneath them and encourage them. And I do think that men need that encouragement more than we do. They are insecure in ways that we don't. It's hard for us to believe because they hide it, and they hide it well because it makes them feel very vulnerable. And one of the things I've read
That's
is
huge
the fact
right there,
that men,
because we think about like this.
what?
Sorry. I would say that's huge right there, because we think about, stone men, nothing can make them cry. Like, uh,
Yeah.
anyway, what you said was powerful. So I'm sorry, that was really good.
Well, there's a really good practical book that I also love to recommend. It's called For Women Only, and it's by Shanti
I've read it.
Feldhahn. And even if you're
Yes.
not married, it would be a brilliant book to pick up because it talks about just the relationships between men and women. And she talks about the fact that men um, feel like imposters, like they are failing. Many, many men feel like they're just not, like if they were found out for who they really are, they'd be found out to be a fraud because they don't think they're good enough. Because they have, and part of that I think is they're not being properly encouraged. And if you think about the average woman, she's not encouraging her husband. She's more thinking, why don't you ever give me compliments? Why don't you ever tell me I look pretty? Why don't you ever do this? It's all about us. I want to be complimented more than, I feel like more than my husband, because that I love getting words of affirmation and encouragement. But deep down, does he feel like I admire him or respect him or appreciate him, or that he's doing a good job, and why and how? And with my three sons, watching them respond to my encouragement to them, even as younger boys, and then into the high school years, and then into the college years. Because as a mom, I can see deeper into them than maybe, a girl that they meet in class, and just see how they stop and they listen when I give them encouragement. Even now, I might say, I am so proud of the job you're doing. You are really committing yourself to your wife and the work at hand. You have such a strong work ethic. They stop what they're doing and they just listen. And I almost feel like, oh, I wish I had another paragraph, because they're just soaking it in and they want more. And to have that kind of power to encourage a man when no one else has that kind of power. I mean, even more than his mother, a wife can speak
Yeah.
to the heart of her husband, more than his employer. Um, to me, I find that a hidden power, that we want something that everyone can see. But when I know that I just built my husband up and he is standing taller because of me, that's power. Now, I also have the power to tear down my marriage and call
Yeah.
it quits. Do you know statistically more women file for divorce than men? And we leave men in our trail wondering what on earth happened. And we feel empowered because we took control and we ended the relationship because we demanded more, because we are not going to settle for less, because he should have treated me better. I think that's a misuse of power. I think we don't understand how to work together. Um, so in my mind, when you say empowerment, I go that direction, think of just the
Yeah.
incredible role we've been given to come alongside of the person we love the most and to have the most influence in their life.
Girl. Amen. I wasn't even sure where that conversation was headed, but that you did better than I ever could have expected. That's such a power. We're talking about power, and what a powerful conversation, and being able to empower our marriage, our husband. Secret power, lots of words about power, but that was
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I want to kind of switch gears, because when we talk about marriage, especially young marriage, and first of all, I love that you're kind of serving just as a mentor, because when I'm such a deep thinker about these kind of things, and I think often about generations ago, how many families lived with grandparents and aunts and uncles and so many family members around. There was much more generational mentorship naturally happening, because you were doing laundry with the
Hmm.
aunties and uncles and the grandmas, and had the advice of, honey, when I was 20, whatever. And we're more removed from that because we're such an independent culture. But being able to not only offer your advice and write it down, and do the labor of love of 2 years of writing a book, and offering it to young people, it's just so powerful. And as I'm speaking to young people, because we don't live in those communities anymore, such,
Hmm.
please make sure you listen to your grandparents. Or if you don't have, a lot of us come from a history of divorce, listen to an amazing woman like Michelle, who took the time and labor to write out these words. But anyway, I want to talk about money, because this is something that couples often argue about, as we know. Um, I know you talk about this in your book. What are just some kind of advice, how to bring this up without friction, how to respect your husband when it comes to this conversation, money and newlyweds? Give us some good
Oh
stuff.
my.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I do think it's something to talk about and to revisit it when you need to revisit it. And the best time to talk about hot topics are when you're not upset about it.
Yeah.
So if you've got something that came up and you're upset, great, handle that in the moment, but then say, hey, next Saturday, can we sit down and just talk about our finances? Because I'm feeling like I don't know what's going on, or I'm feeling like I don't have enough money to buy the things I want to buy, or I want to know when it's going to be possible for us to go on a weekend away. Whatever it might be,
Yeah.
um, I would say present that. And in any conversation with a newlywed, it's always a good idea to approach it without emotion. And I was much more emotional as a young bride. And I think when our hormones are going up and down every month, we also can have times when it's not a good time to broach a subject that's going to make us cry. So it's on us to really help manage that. And it's okay to say, honey,
Sure.
clearly I'm emotional. And you know what? Invite your husband in and say, if I am emotional, can you just gently recognize that maybe we should table this discussion for 2 weeks? And then let him do that. I mean, I gave my husband permission to do that. And when he did, it was kind of maddening. It was kind of, I am fine. I am fine. I can handle, but I wasn't, So
Been
I
there.
think learning how to communicate as newlyweds, no matter what the topic is important. And then also making sure that you're not making blanket statements like you always spend more money than I do, or you never help me out. I mean, the word always and the word never, no matter what you're talking about, is going to just cause the other person to stand up tall and think, oh, I'm fighting for this, because that's not true. And then we get into this defensive mode. So if you're talking about finances or whatever it is, you want to not use the word always and not use the word never. And you also want to encourage them. I mean, when you think about finances, if you're tempted to say, you always overspend, what is something about finances that you can say that is a compliment or encouraging? You can say, I appreciate the fact that you go to work every day, that you have a strong work ethic, that you're bringing home money and you have a plan. You can see it happening by what you're doing to get promoted in a year. I'm so proud of you. Like, build each
Yeah.
other up before you start nitpicking the little things. Um, and I do recommend that we put our money together, that you don't say, well, if you're both working, well, my paycheck is covering, these expenses, the utilities, and so I'll pay those. And then he says, I'll pay this. I think money should be brought together just for that learning how to trust one another. But for me, my biggest takeaway looking back, I mean, once we got that sorted out, was really learning how to be content with what we had. And I write a whole chapter about what that looks like, what contentment looks like. And especially for most young brides who get married before they have enough money to buy the things they want to buy, we have to learn how to be content, or we're going to be demanding of our husband that we buy things that we aren't ready to buy yet. We're buying them outside of our means and we're using credit cards, which only serves to put more stress on our marriage. And as much as we look on social media and see beautiful homes and vacations that people are taking, the flip side of that is there's an awful lot of us who aren't. And if you come to our homes, you're going to see used furniture, or you're going to see older clothes, or you're going to see that we need a haircut because it's been 2 weeks and we just are waiting for the next paycheck to go get a haircut. I mean, that to me is the beautiful foundation of a marriage that is just slowly being built, kind of
Yeah.
the old fashioned way. But especially now where our money is not going as far as it did 10 years ago, we have to be content with what we can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And that whole contentment, a lot of it comes from not comparing ourselves with others, as difficult as that is. You comparing yourself with your girlfriend's husband or your girlfriend's closet or that guy's car, Um, if we can do that hard work of not comparing, then that's going to give us more contentment and joy with what we actually can buy. Um, and I think about this a lot. When people talk about how hard marriage is, or marriage is hard work, I think it scares young women because we don't tell them what that work looks like. It just sounds like it's an awful assignment for life. Like, who would want that? Um,
Yeah.
but if you are listening and you wonder, like, what do you mean marriage is hard work? It can be as simple as that. It's the hard work of controlling your thoughts and not comparing your husband to someone else on a weekly basis, because that is something you don't just decide you're not going to do when you're done. I still have to go, whoa, I think I'm cranky because I'm looking at what they have and I don't have. Whatever it is, I mean, if you work on it, I do think it gets better. I would say I'm a lot better at this than I was 30 years ago. But we all have that tendency to compare ourselves. I don't think anyone has contentment mastered. But to me is just a little higher level look at finances, is choosing to be content with what you have. Doesn't mean it'll always be that way, but for today, to just take a deep breath and think, well, this is my reality today. What am I thankful for in the midst of the things I want but I don't have? Just taking control of the narrative and shifting your story is huge.
Do you guys understand why I jumped at the opportunity to interview Michelle? This is like
Mm.
a gold mine of information and advice, and you say it so gently and kindly and truth bombally. Meaning that it's so accurate and it's so good, but it's also I don't know, it's not judgmental, it's just really great advice. This is
Huh.
and I've been married 20 years, so I can attest to everything that you're saying, or things that I've learned along the way as well, or things I wish I knew sooner, or whatever the case.
Yeah.
But certainly, if nothing else, the conversation with finance, we I've shared our testimony, our financial testimony on this podcast as well. But there is something beautiful too, is just kind of like being young and broke and figuring out life together, and like that. But that's the beauty of it. And if we skip that and we
Yeah.
move into the house that our parents had, that they worked 30 years to have, like the same type of house, I mean, I don't know, like I feel like
Yes.
you kind of miss that. And so congratulations if you were given $1 million, but it is beauty of scraping together and pooling your stuff and having a staycation when all of your friends are going to Hawaii. I don't know, I think that there's a lot of beauty there as well. And not to, and
Yeah.
it's still, who in the social media world, like Instagram that. And I think that's what we really, a lot of us crave. A lot of us crave the just real, unfiltered,
The real life.
unexpensive. Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
That
thank you for
makes for the
sharing all that.
best bonding. I mean, you walk through something hard together, and that whole message of hard isn't always bad. I mean, marriage is hard work, but just life is hard work. And by hard work, it just might mean exactly that, budgeting. Um, and yet, when you do it together, you are becoming more of a team. It's just like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
we rounded another lap and we did it well. And you look at your partner and it becomes more of that teamwork. And then you get to that point where you're like, yep, I wouldn't do this with anybody else. I mean, you're my guy.
Yes.
We are doing it. And there's a lot of joy in that. Yes. And then for the young bride who thinks, my home, I'm embarrassed about my home because it doesn't look like my parents or someone who's ahead of you. Or for me, getting married at age 24, as opposed to my son who just got married at age 36, he was able to give his bride all kinds of things my husband and I didn't see for probably 20 years because he'd worked 12 more years longer than we did. And in all that time, he didn't have children. So he was
Yeah.
not only acquiring wealth, but he also wasn't spending it on his children. And if I, as a 24-year-old, compared myself to who my son is with his new bride and what her diamond ring looks like and what their home looks like, I would feel so sorry for myself. It's just such a losing game. Just don't go there.
Yes. Amen. Um, I hope this is a good comparison. It kind of made me chuckle, but I think about when you hear about war stories, and I promise I have a point to this. Um, People who, the men in the barracks, and they're surviving all these crazy things, and bullets going off and all this stuff, and they're in this hard, as we mentioned, hard situation, but they survive, and then they're bonded for life, right? They get together, and like when they're in their 80s, and they hug and
Yes.
they remember this time. Again, I hope this is a good example, but isn't that the beauty kind of marriage? We're saying doing hard work. You're There's stuff being thrown at us. There's deaths in the family. There's financial hardships. There's job losses. There's moves. There's hard things, but you survive it together. And then it's kind of like, as you
Yes.
said, like you're my person. We got through this together. That's the beauty of it all.
Yes. And if not with your spouse, then by yourself. So, I mean, really, we walk out on marriage thinking that it's hard and it hurts and we don't like this guy this month. But the alternative to that is doing it by ourselves. And when you grow together with someone, you're going to think differently about each other from day to day. But baseline is that commitment that you have to one another that, hey, I'm in it. I'm in it to the end. And that
Yes.
I feel really strongly about making a commitment at the beginning that you're not going to get divorced. And that is part of the reason I wrote that book, is kind of to say, hey, this is my healthy marriage. It's not perfect, and I'm not a professional, but this is what it looked like behind the scenes. These were some hard times that we had, and we got through it. And now this is where we're at. And I want the same thing for you, and you can do it. You just need to know that this hard time doesn't mean you picked the wrong guy. And this hard time doesn't mean it's not going to turn around, because I would imagine that your listeners are familiar with the traditional marriage vows. Um, I take you to have and to hold, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. The crazy thing is that when you've been married 10, 20, 30 years, you've gone through at least one of those seasons, probably more, that you never ever anticipated. I mean, I ended up on bed rest with one of our children. That was a season of sickness that required a lot of outside help. I ended up having a brain surgery when I was 39. Now, you don't get married and think, I commit to you. And looking forward, if you ever have brain surgery or anything like that, I'm there. Like, it sounds so like it would never ever happen. But things
Right.
like that happen, and you walk through them together, um, because marriage has seasons. And like, that's so behind us now, that I were in a season of health, and it's amazing. But I love encouraging younger people too. Like, marriage has seasons, just like when you're dating, you have up and down. I mean, the seasons are good, but when you have that covenant together, knowing I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere, let's just take a deep breath and get through this season. And on the other side of this is going to be something better, probably, if it's a tough season. But I don't think we talk about that enough, that seasons come and go and what they
Yeah.
look like. And I know you mentioned this, we haven't brought it up yet, but just your sex life when you're a young bride. Um, our sex life has seasons too. And we don't, especially as newlyweds, talk about it, because usually during that season, the hormones are leveled and you're good and you both just have a lot of desire for each other. And so then you've got a lot going on. But what about the seasons when you're working really hard and you don't have any energy left at the end of the day, or you just had a baby and you don't want to be touched for 5 months? I mean, that's a season of our marriage. And it's okay to have seasons in our sex life too. And then how do we adapt to that? And the only way to adapt to that is to talk about it. So I encourage young women, start talking about it when you're young, and figure out what's going to make you comfortable talking about it. And it might mean reading a book together. And that's okay. I mean, that's great. I think most guys are like, who knows? Maybe they would or wouldn't want to read it. But again, that book that I recommended earlier, For Women Only, she has a whole chapter in there on a man's sex drive and what that means to him and how it affects how he approaches a marriage. Um, really simple, but really eye-opening stuff that I think would help a young bride. And I think even if you're not married, it would be great to know beforehand, because I think for women in general, it's just mind blowing to try to wrap our mind around the fact that their testosterone levels are just astronomically more than our own. And so we don't have any idea what they're experiencing. And that's another topic I would get maybe some pushback on, but it's medically true. And it's a difference. So I think knowing that is super, super helpful. And maybe all you had was a health class in high school that you didn't pay any attention, and they probably didn't even talk about testosterone levels anyway. So I would recommend reading a book on sex together, and then talking about it. What does this apply to us? Do we like this? Can we laugh about this? Yeah.
This is so good. And as I keep hearing too, just having conversations, and you had this conversation in the book was so helpful, but inviting couples to talk about what they don't want to talk about: money, sex, desire, testosterone, because at the end of the day, you're different humans. You came from different families of origin. unless you live in Alabama. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. um, but there's just so many things that can be solved, common ground that could be found by conversations. And I think that's huge. You are just a wealth of information. I'm just love you. One more thing I want to talk about, because I know you touched on this in the book, and it's just something that I see often as a talking point, if you will, when it comes to long, healthy relationships, and that is believing the best in each other. If you can
Mm,
just give me a glimpse, because I know that sometimes we're frustrated and sometimes you don't, your instinct is you're being a jerk, but maybe like grabbing that self and yeah, but they're not always a jerk or whatever it is, fighting
yes.
sometimes that inner instinct to believe the best in your partner. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, that is one of my favorite go-tos because it's very simple and yet it's so profound. So believing
Yeah.
the best comes from 1 Corinthians 13, the chapter on what love is. And you're probably familiar with that. Love is patient, love is kind. And there's a whole list of things that love is. And each one of them is actually an action. Um, it's a verb. Love is a decision to do something. And one of the things in that list is love always believes the best. And another way to say that is love gives the benefit of the doubt. And so I talked earlier about our inner dialogue and being critical, and our default being to for him not to get something done, and we assume the worst reason as to why they didn't get it done. And it can just be like, well, he didn't get that done because he doesn't care about me or because he's
Yeah.
selfish. We immediately go to believing the worst, and we don't know we're doing it because it's in our thoughts. And we we just don't think about our thoughts. We let them happen and they guide us and they direct us. And we might wonder, why am I in a bad mood? Well, it's because of what we've been thinking. And yet, if we don't think about what we've been thinking, we just think, well, I'm in a bad mood because, the power went out today, or because I stubbed my toe, or because I wanted to wear that dress and I got it out and realized it had a stain on it. And we blame all these external things when really it was, well, we went straight to believing the worst about them. Um,
Yeah.
so practically, I like to focus on believing the best and what that looks like. And I thought of an example of, if you ask your husband, say it's, time for your birthday or something, and you're just kind of dropping hints like, I would really like this new purse. And maybe you even specifically said, here's a link to this purse, or my friend Katie got this purse and I love it. You're like giving him clues or whatever it is. And you thought you were really clear. And then it comes to your birthday and you open it up and you have a new coffee maker. And it's not just a new coffee maker, it's a really expensive coffee maker. And you're thinking, we have a coffee maker. Are you kidding me? Oh, I know. You bought this coffee maker because you wanted it. This was an excuse for you to buy what you wanted. And you're thinking these things. I mean, maybe some women would say them, which would be worse because then, you're really deflating him. But if you're believing the best about him, you can stop and think, okay, why in the world did he buy me that? Um, I'm going to find out. And then say, honey, what was your thought process in getting me this coffee maker? Like, I'm kind of confused. And I mean, if let's say this guy was like, well, and he's all excited because remember last month you were complaining about the coffee maker because you like to have fresh coffee and you have to get out your coffee grinder, and then that made a mess on the counter and you're really frustrated because then you did that and then you ground your coffee and it was such a long process, and I just thought I wanted to make your life easier, and I thought it would just bless you to get you an all-in-one combo, and I wanted you to know I was paying attention, I was listening. Like, to me, that's the ultimate gift, is someone's like, wow, you picked up on that. I mean, that's like higher level gift giving. And if we're not believing the best, we're just kind of like, well, what a failure you are. How many clues do I have to tell you I wanted this purse? And you get me this coffee
Yeah.
maker. And I mean, I give that example because that highlights how we can deflate our husband by assuming the worst. Here's a man who really put in extra effort and was excited for a month to get her this coffee maker he knew would be better than the old one, and he thought would bless her because she makes coffee every single day. And he thinks her purse already looks nice. I mean, who knows? But
Yeah.
I think we miss so many opportunities to find out, that we just not find out, to reinforce the fact that we married really good men. And I think most women marry really good men, or why would we marry them? And the only thing that changes between marriage and today is how we've processed our day to day living, what we're choosing to think about, what we're choosing to criticize, if we're choosing to be thankful. All those little things on a daily basis kind of have gotten us to where we are today. And so going back and rewiring, or, taking um, inventory of those little things, habits that we've just acquired that we can change. And it might be a slower change, that's okay, but we can change. And probably most of these young early marriages look like everybody else's young early marriage that stuck it out, but had the encouragement to keep going. So I think so many of us, just if we can believe the best and choose to be thankful, and sometimes just saying it out loud. You know what? We get frustrated. He bought us, we open, well, you can't really do it out loud if you just got the coffee maker, but let's say he's late, whatever, he's late from work. And you could say, he's late from work. Okay, well, you know what? He probably has a good reason for being late from work. Maybe he got tied up. Maybe, just instead of keeping it all inside, start saying it out loud and
Yeah.
and be positive. So anyway, yes, believe the best. I love that. In fact, one of the things that I haven't advertised very thoroughly about my book is there's also a companion guide to the book. So I wrote two. I wrote the book, which is written in such a way that you can give it to anyone. So I am a Christian woman, and part of my strong belief in marriage stems from scriptures that I've studied and principles that I see in the Bible that I have endeavored to make my own and apply to my marriage. That's great if you're a Christian and you are familiar with those same things and you agree with those same things. But because I know so many young women that have come and been in my home and are friends with my daughters who aren't there, and yet I still have a heart for them and I want them to have a happy marriage, I wrote my book in such a way that here are the principles that make your marriage work. I don't talk about why. I just talk about the fact that yes, they do. But that felt really incomplete to me. So I have a book that you can give to a waitress, you can give to your next door neighbor. You don't have to know where she stands or where she ever went to church or if she even does or cares or anything. But then let's say that you are wanting to know more, and specifically you want to know, what does the Bible say about marriage, then also that companion book is just dovetails with the book. You read one chapter in the book, then you
Amazing.
read the chapter in the companion guide, and it's a workbook. So it answers the questions and helps you apply it. So you're not just reading it and going, the mental assent of, I know that, I know that, I know that. And then you finish the book and you're like, oh, dang, but I feel the same. Like I want people to
Yeah.
apply the ideas and make it their own and see change in their life. So anyway, there is the book, and the companion guide is also called Hey Beginner Wife, and then just companion guide. So they're both on Amazon. And if you want to just get the book first, make sure that you're getting the book and not the companion guide because the covers are very similar. But that is available too.
Thank you for providing that resource. I'll make sure we link it and everything. And I hope that this gets in the hands of many listeners because, my word, marriage cannot be under invested. It is one of the most greatest, it's like the greatest relationship we have here on earth. And with the marriage is the family and the foundation of every society. Like it's under attack, and
Yeah.
what a blessing that you're spending time and effort to help build it back up. So, and I hope that marriages are saved, and before they even happen, before you even met your husband,
Yes.
perhaps this is a great resource for you for sure. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing. This is just amazing, and I'm so thrilled to have met you.
Oh, me too. I'm glad we connected. This has been a lot of
Um,
fun.
it has. I'll make sure we put all your links in the show notes so that'll be easy for people to grab. But what a pleasure meeting you, Michelle.
Thanks so much. And I want to add too, if you're on Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Hey Beginner Wife. And that's
I
just
love
a
it. We'll
daily
make sure we do
dose
that
of
too.
little bitty relationship tidbits. So yeah.
It's so good. I've seen it. I follow you. You're amazing. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. It's good talking to you.